Continue to focus on that breaking news from Washington. President Trump says he's had a very productive 2-hour phone conversation with Vladimir Putin as he seeks to renew efforts to end the war with Ukraine. Mr. Trump said their top advisors will meet next week, followed by a face-to-face summit meeting between the two leaders in Budapest at a date not yet specified. Vladimir Zelensky, as I say, is due at the White House tomorrow to seek more support for Ukraine. But just consider the juxtaposition for a second. Today, the EU has outlined a plan to fortify Europe's eastern border so the continent is ready to defend itself from a Russian invasion by 2030. In Berlin, the German Chancellor said he wants the EU to use the Russian assets that are frozen here in the West to provide Ukraine with a multi-billion-dollar loan.
We want to make even better use of the frozen assets of the Russian Central Bank to grant Ukraine a total of around $140 billion in additional interest-free loans. These additional funds are to be used exclusively for military equipment. Paid out in tranches, they would secure Ukraine's military resilience over several years.
Let's bring in our North America editor, Sarah Smith. No one in Europe, Sarah, will doubt the powers of the president to bring warring parties together. But these talks, these 2-hour talks, were taking place this afternoon at a time when there was a national power cut in Ukraine after another round of intense bombardment.
Yeah, and at a time when Donald Trump had sounded as though he was increasingly frustrated about that and about the lack of movement on the war from Russia. That's why he's been musing in the last few days that he might agree to supply Ukraine and President Zelensky, whom he's meeting tomorrow, with long-range Tomahawk missiles to further their war effort. Missiles that could reach far into Russia, as far as Moscow, for instance. Russia had warned that they would see that as a major escalation of the US involvement in the war in Ukraine. Then Donald Trump gets on the phone with Vladimir Putin today for this lengthy 2-hour call. And what is posted on social media afterwards does seem to rather change the landscape. He says that they made great progress in this very productive call, that advisors, including the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, will meet with Russian counterparts next week, and they'll work towards another summit, this time to be held in Budapest between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Well, he got almost nothing out of the summit he had with Vladimir Putin in Alaska. He had said before he's worried that he's being strung along by Vladimir Putin, and yet he seems now to be able to be prepared to take another meeting before he tries to force anything upon Russia.
There's a line that really stands out for me, Sarah. He says, we also spent a great deal of time talking about trade between Russia and the United States when the war with Ukraine is over. I mean, when you put that alongside the statement we've had from Sir Ken McCullum here in London today, that his MI5 service is facing practically daily threats in this hybrid war with Russia, it just feels so outlandish that we could be talking about a trading relationship.
Yes, exactly. But this is the prize Donald Trump sees in the future. This is how he views a lot of conflicts, the Middle East as well. The prospect of peace allowing for economic development and trade, the way that the US could profit from that if they were involved, but also the way in which that will raise the prosperity of these conflict-torn regions, is what he's trying to reach towards. So for him, that is the end goal, trade with Russia. But of course, that cannot happen unless there is peace in Ukraine. But that's probably one of the reasons why he's working so hard to try and achieve that.
And when you look at what might have come up in that 2-hour conversation, Sarah, the Tomahawks, as you described, the pressure that he's putting on India to cut Russian oil supplies, the frozen Russian assets in Europe, Nicolas Maduro, who is a Russian client, there's quite a bit of leverage he has over the Russian president.
Yes, indeed. And he just doesn't seem to be prepared to press that advantage at this point. We've been here before where he has made threatening sounds towards Russia, said that he demands that Vladimir Putin agree to something. But then as soon as they get on the phone or meet and speak to each other, Donald Trump seems to be pacified somehow by what President Putin says to him and kicks the can down the road, so to speak. So I think it's now unlikely that he will be offering those Tomahawk missiles to President Zelensky, certainly not without any conditions. He'll want to talk to President Putin before he takes what would be a fairly escalatory step in what the United States is prepared to provide Ukraine with to defend itself. So once again, it does appear that President Putin has talked Donald Trump round to his point of view. I mean, we'll see what he says when he meets Volodymyr Zelensky tomorrow.
Which will come as a disappointment to Volodymyr Zelensky because things were heading in his direction, as you say. Do we know who initiated this conversation this afternoon?
President Trump, I think, because he was the one who announced at first that he was intending to get on the phone, but I couldn't be absolutely sure about that. He does seem keen to talk to Vladimir Putin as often as he can, so to speak. They have a lot to discuss and many things that they agree on, although not on the progress in the war in Ukraine. And Melania Trump herself also got involved recently. She gave us a rare statement, actually, saying that she had been talking to the Russian president about the fate of Ukrainian children who had been kidnapped and taken to Russia. And Vladimir Putin told Donald Trump how grateful he was for the contact with Melania and for her involvement in this. And that's the kind of flattery that always works very well with Donald Trump.
Really interesting stuff. Sarah, always good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for that. Well, as I mentioned, it does come as Ukraine imposed a second day of nationwide power cuts, Russia intensifying its attacks on the country's energy network ahead of the winter. Officials say there were major drone and missile strikes in the Sumy region and also on the capital, Kyiv.